and I have been a physician all my life. What else do you want to know?
Yeah, we had that many years back. You conceptualized a new idea on healthcare, and later on you gave it title as Meikirch Model. Can you tell a little bit about that?
You wanted to know how I came to the idea of actually thinking about something new about healthcare.
Exactly.
And this came actually because as a physician I was working always at university. Then I was a specialist focusing always on some specific diseases. But at age 65 I became dean of a faculty. And when I was dean of a faculty, I actually had to develop a broad view on medicine. And when I looked at this broad view, then I saw all sorts of difficulties in healthcare. And then I said to myself, something needs to be done about it. And that's why I started with a project description of how to reorientate medicine. But unfortunately, this project was not very successful. It was accepted in the Swiss Academy of Medical Sciences, and we have had many sessions. In the end, you know, we had a book and we had a big meeting on this subject, but unfortunately, this did not really produce something truly new. And for this reason, then I have been thinking, what else can I do? And then I met the physician who approached me and said, listen, you should define terms. In medicine, the terms are ill-defined. So I have, in fact, been thinking, which term is it? And the term of health is actually the major problem, because it was ill-defined. It was, I would say, pre-scientific. Everybody knows what health is, because he has experienced health, and he has experienced also disease with a flu, or with a cold, or with even perhaps malaria attack or anything like that. And then he has recovered, and from these experiences it's possible to get an intuitive notion what health is. Now the interesting thing is, this intuitive notion has led us very far in medicine, but somehow the healthcare system has now gotten into trouble. And the question was, how can we solve these troubles? We need a completely new look at healthcare, and that means we need a completely new look at what health truly is. So I started to think about that and to work on these specific problems. And my purpose was to find a description of health, or a concept of health, that is scientifically based. That means all facts that I include in this new definition of health are scientifically based. That means we start with the demands of life. Now, every living creature has demands of life, from the simplest cells up to the highly developed human being. The next thing is, we have to have resources to respond to these demands of life. Now, for us humans, what is important to have these demands also in the future. That's why we call them potentials. In addition, the question is, what are these demands? And this question was truly critical for me. Obviously, we have a body. This is a gift we have received at birth. And this gift at birth, we have been working with it, and it has evolved, and it has to become what it is now. But we have also something else. We have a personality. And the question, how do we deal with that? So since we need our resources in the future, I called them potentials, and I decided that there is a biologically given potential and a personally acquired potential. Now when you ask me what is the scientific background of the personally acquired potential, then obviously with natural sciences you cannot answer this question. Yet, if you come to humanities, then you find answers. The humanities, the sciences of our human beings, this has a lot of science, and you can get scientific answers to these questions. So that's why both potentials are science-based. And obviously for health, you know, we have the society that is around ourselves, because each of us interacts in many ways with the society. And this interaction obviously is also important for health. And finally, around the society is the environment. And we live off the environment. It's in the environment that the food is produced. It's in the environment that we live and that we have, for instance, to have houses, to have enough protection against cold in Switzerland, in order to be able to sleep at night, and many other things. So we deal every day with the environment, and that's why this is also important. Now you see, we come to a very round sort of a concept of health that involves all important aspects. That means the demands of life, the two potentials, the society, and the natural environment. These are 5 components.
I have a question. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay.
You know, you have written the model in very nice manner. There are technicalities, but we are more interested to know how was your journey, who helped you in the journey, and what are the challenges you faced for all these years to reach here.
Okay. This is also an interesting question, but which deals much more with my personality. And for instance, I found that if I'm working alone, I do not really find the right things, because once I have created something, I feel it's so wonderful that I don't want to change it. But then I always found somebody with whom I could collaborate. So a critical step in the development of the Meikirch model was the Dr. Shyama Kuruvilla in Geneva. And with her I could actually make the step from individual health to the complete picture of the Meikirch model. That was an important step. And then how this actually interacts with all different aspects of life, for this purpose, for these questions, I discovered a friend who is Eckhart Hahn from Germany, and he helped me a great deal, because with him I could discuss all the details. He's an experienced physician, he's retired like myself, he has also been chairman of a department, he has also been dean, and from this point of view he is an excellent partner, and together we have been able to make several publications. The first one we made is Understanding the Nature of Health. That was absolutely critical. And then another paper we made was that we felt the physicians should get help. Now, how can you apply the Meikirch model in a physician's office? We have made a paper on that. And the last paper we made was on how the Meikirch model actually could change the healthcare system. we feel that the Meikirch model is a new paradigm for the healthcare system, because it actually questions the very essence, the very center of healthcare, namely health. And we feel that once the whole healthcare system is based on the Meikirch model, you will find that the health of the people will be improved and the cost of healthcare will be decreased.
Okay.
Thank you for your attention.
Okay. Good morning, Professor. I'm very happy to know that you have done a great innovation on healthcare, which will help in public health. Can you tell a little bit about that? How your Meikirch model will strengthen the public health?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak a little bit about the Meikirch model. And what you see here, this is actually the definition of health. The model made very simple. You have the demands of life, and in order to be healthy, every individual has to fulfill these demands of life. And he has a biologically given potential and a personally acquired potential, and these two potentials, the demands of life, must be satisfied. So this is the task every individual has. But around there is a society which interacts with the individuals, obviously, and further around is the environment. Now, what is the society's responsibility? In public health, the responsibility is to make sure that the people are enabled to lead a healthy life. So the enabling is actually the secret. And now, how is this done? I think I would like to say two things. First, you have to create a culture of life, and then you have to provide the necessary infrastructure. And right now, approaching only the idea of the culture of life. And the culture of life means that somebody follows 12 rules, which actually should be internalized in the personal acquired potential. And these 12 rules for a healthy life, that would be the culture of health, if people know it and are motivated to do that. First, you should learn much about health, then you know how to behave in different situations. Mothers should participate in mother-child care, and the fathers should support that. Then, children should get the recommended vaccination. In addition, the rules of hygiene must be respected all the time, always. And then obviously one has to take care that the food one is eating is healthy. Everybody should get daily physical exercise, and obviously in an area where there is malaria, one should use mosquito nets. And then, very important point is to avoid overweight, because overweight shortens life. Smoking is bad, and narcotic drugs are bad. Finally, alcoholic beverages can be very bad, so one should be very careful with them. And finally, one should find a purpose in life. That is important for every person. And this purpose in life actually should deal initially with the question, as a mother, I must take care of my children. This gives purpose. For the husband to provide the food and to provide the means to get a place to sleep, that is also very purposeful. But in other phases of life, one should find other purposes. And there are enough people in need around ourselves for whom one could do something and in this way find a purpose even if one is no longer at work. Finally, when you are with other people, you should interact with mindfulness. What does this mean? Mindful interaction means that you are always thinking about what the others actually mean. And if somebody comes against you and offends you, then you don't offend back, but you ask him or her why he or she is offending. And that is the secret. And if you do this, then you can avoid conflicts. And conflicts are also bad for health. So we have to get along with each other well. And this is now the most important aspect about creating a culture of health. But knowledge alone is not sufficient. You know, we should have role models that also show us all these things. And in India there is a wonderful role model. This is Mahatma Gandhi. And that is something we should always keep in mind. Now, I cannot speak about the infrastructure, but this is another responsibility of the society.
Professor, what Meikirch Model is doing on healthcare, how it helps to individual to strengthen their healthcare in life. Can you tell a little bit to the audience?
Well, thank you very much for asking me this question. It's easy. We just have to go again to the Meikirch Model. And you find here the individual, and he has the demands of life. And in order to respond to these demands, each individual has a biologically given potential. In fact, this is his body and the personally acquired potential, and this is his personality. Now, each individual has to fulfill these demands of life. And these are threefold. First, there are bodily demands: nutrition, clothing, housing, toilets, personal hygiene, vaccination. And you know, each physician, when he examines a patient, is concerned with the question, is a patient able to respond to the bodily demands? Then there are psychosocial demands, the development of the personality, social participation and social integration, mindfulness, and so on. And the question here again, the physician asks, is the patient able with these instruments to respond satisfactorily to the demands of life? And the third is the demands by the environment. That means, is the production of food okay? And is the drinking water okay? How about clean air and warming of the earth? These are the questions the physician asks in the background, and then, you know, he asks the appropriate questions to the patient, and he examines the patient in regard to these three aspects. That is what should happen if a physician considers the Meikirch Model. Now, here is one of the interesting things, is the psychosocial demands. They should actually be treated very carefully, and unfortunately they are neglected in some part. I want to quickly show you an example how we could look at the purpose in life, or what is giving a life sense and purpose. Here you see, this is a baby that is born. At the time of birth, the soul, the identity of this particular baby is undeveloped, because he or she hasn't lived as yet. But she enters into a cultural and material world. And the birth means that these two things combined. And once they are combined, then they go to a stage of development in childhood, and then to a productive phase in adult life, when you know, you have to take care of children, then you have to produce the necessary goods that the family can live, and then comes aging, and then, you know, the strength, and everything gets reduced, and finally the patient dies. And what happens here? That's quite interesting, you see. The identity is now developed, and this identity separates from a cultural and material world. And this cultural and material world during the lifetime has changed. In a small part, it has changed because of the person. So, looking at how we actually live with this perspective, there will be two questions that need to be answered. The first question is, how should my soul be at the end of my life? What do I want to have as a soul at the end of my life? And if you ask these questions through your life, X times, then you actually can realize, you know, that you can do something about it, and that, you know, at the end, there's a developed identity that it is the way you want it to have, and not the way other people want to have. The second question is, what is the contribution to the cultural and material world that I want to have made at the end of my life? That means, in practice, what is the contribution I want to achieve as a contribution to this world? Be it social, be it physical, whatever, or financial, or political. These are the second question. And if you carefully think about the second question, then you will find out that you can do something about this also. So if you then ask the question, what is the purpose of my life? You have to deal with these two questions. And if you have a purpose in life, then your health will be better. And that is a very important point also in healthcare. Thank you.
Mr. Johannes, you told a lot about the Meikirch model. But I have some additional question regarding your personal life. You know, it's not easy to make such a long journey of 20 years. And who supported you or motivated you to encourage you in the Meikirch model innovation?
Well, first of all, it was my feeling that something is wrong in healthcare. And then I got support by the Swiss Academy of Medical Sciences, but for about 2 or 2.5 years. And unfortunately, we did not achieve any significant results. That's why I had to continue on my own. Then I tried to continue, and by 2005, you know, I had this first publication. Obviously, I was always supported by my family. We have a nice home here in Meikirch, and Ursula, my wife, helped me. That was fine. But do you want to know more?
Okay, so why you give the name as a Meikirch model? Because you are talking about healthcare. You are not talking about Meikirch. So why you have given the name as a Meikirch model?
I think I have been told that something special should get a special name. And in medicine there have been many, on healthcare, many aspects that were named after a town. For instance, very famous is the Helsinki Declaration, the first one about medical ethics. And so I looked at the towns around here, and I found there are declarations about Bern, Geneva and Zurich, and this will not be helpful. So I decided I take Meikirch because nobody knows Meikirch. Because Meikirch will be a unique name for branding.
Wonderful. What are the obstacles? Have you faced any obstacles of all these years on your innovation or research on Meikirch model?
Well, this is very easy said. The most important obstacle was me.
Tell a little bit.
You know, if I want to create something new, something truly new, then it's very difficult because how do you think of something new? But what then happened is that I met other people, and for instance Dr. Shyama Kuravilla, and I met Eckhart Hahn, I met you also, and all these interactions have been very creative and very useful. So for me, in order to be creative, I knew I have to be together with other persons who know about it, about what we are discussing, and who are engaged, and then together actually find. That's why I never want to publish anything alone.
And how your India program is going on? I heard that you are doing work in India as well.
Okay, the work in India happened as a result of a meeting at the UN where I was. This meeting has not been very successful for me, not at all. But I met a gentleman named you, and I asked you in front of my poster, are you interested in health? And you said yes. So you had the courtesy to listen to my explanations of the poster, and then you felt that was interesting for you. Although you happened to be the next few days in Zurich, so I invited you to come to Bern and to discuss the problem. And so in this discussion we decided to cooperate and to start something. And so you made me actually work quite hard, writing papers and books in order to help you to advance with the Meikirch model in the state of Odisha in India.
Okay, you might have visited India once.
Well, I followed your invitation, and we have seen the villages where the people, the indigenous people, actually have been settled and where they are living now. And I understand what difficulty it must have been for you to organize these villages and to have a help for the organization of their view on health. This certainly must have been quite a useful thing. And so I'm happy that we ended up writing a paper together on the changes in the villages that occurred as a result of you and your people teaching the Meikirch model.
Okay, how is your wife Ursula is supportive to your work?
Well, she has actually been supportive all my life.
Okay. She never opposed you in Meikirch model innovation or?
No, the point is, she's a very good partner for discussion. She's not a physician, so she's not a scientist. But I can discuss all other aspects with her, and she actually feels that the Meikirch model is a very important project. And while she agrees on that, she tries to support me that I can do it. And you imagine I'm 83 years old, and without her support, you know, I wouldn't have been able to achieve anything.
Okay, so what is your future aim? What you want to achieve at the end?
Well, what I want to achieve in the end, I will not live through that. But what needs to be is that everybody in Switzerland and in the whole world knows the Meikirch Model. The people, because that helps her health behavior, and the physician, and because then their mutual understanding with the patient is easier, and finally the politicians and the administrators, because they will do a better job.
Can you speak something to the world community about the better health and your Meikirch model, how it will help to the global community on healthcare? Can you tell something to?
That is very difficult. But one thing, as I told you already, is if people understand what health is, they can develop a culture of health. And you develop, if a society develops a culture of health, the society will find that the people behave in a more health-producing way. And then they will need less medicine and they will live longer. And from the medical side, in public health has now also the possibility to assist people exactly in the way the Meikirch model actually organizes the thinking about health, and the same for politicians and for economists. And right now, in developed countries or in high-income countries, the interesting thing is that healthcare costs are always growing more rapidly than the gross domestic product. And for this reason, healthcare costs are not sustainable. And if you speak to politicians, if you speak to economists, they all say it cannot continue like that. But nobody has a solution.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that I don't have a solution either.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor. Wish you all the best for success your mission and best of luck.
I have a partial answer, not a full answer.
Okay.